WhiskyJason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American in Germany. Today I'm at the Hanse Spirit 2019 in Hamburg, Germany, together with
David Kover. I'm the brand ambassador for Penderyn Distillery.
And we had a wonderful talk in Frankfurt at the Inter Whisky. You described a lot of different things there. Thank you once again for that.
No problem, my pleasure.
And today I'd like to talk about the icons of Wales, a 50-part series. One day, one how, but we have the first 10% here, right?
Yes, exactly. So we have the first 5 whiskies available at the moment.
Yep.
Hopefully there'll be another 1 or 2 on the way in the next months, next year or this year.
Right.
So this will be really good, and so there'll be a set, and we're aiming to keep releasing these whiskies every so often to keep the interest up and just keep celebrating the Welsh history and culture. That's the idea of the series. So the last 3 that we've done have been famous people from Wales, and the next 2 that we'll be doing will be more in line with the history and the culture.
So maybe that's a trend. I think the first 2 were also about things, and then we have people, and then things, and so on. Let's go through this one by one. So let's take a look at number 1. What do we have here?
Well, this was the first whiskey that we did in the series, which was Penderyn Red Flag. And
why the red flag? Because I'm not a history buff, so I need something.
Well, this was commemorating the first time that a red flag was raised as a sign of protest, which was in the Merthyr riots.
All right.
And part of the reason these riots started was there was a person called, whose nickname anyway was Dick Penderyn, Richard Lewis, who lived in the village of Penderyn.
Yeah.
And he was wrongly accused of stabbing a soldier or a police officer and was executed wrongly. And that was part of the reason these riots started. And so we were commemorating that with this first release in the series, Red Flag.
Very good. So the France has their yellow vests, and you have your red flags. Yeah. Let's move on to number 2. So what do we have here?
Well, this next one was Penderyn Independence, and this is to commemorate American independence, because I think 17 of the signers of the Declaration were of Welsh descent, or Welsh themselves, so including some famous names. Thomas Jefferson, I think, was one of them as well.
Thomas Jefferson has a Welsh descendant. I've been to Monticello. I've never, ever heard that. I'm not disagreeing, but it's just like, well, who would have known? Yeah,
exactly. But so this was the idea for this sort of next version in the series, was to commemorate that. And Penderyn is still now, 18 years since we started, an independent distillery. We still have private owners, all from South Wales, and so we wanted to celebrate that as well.
All right, very good. So let's move on to number 3. So we started going to people now. And I actually like this bottle, the second best of all of them so far.
Yeah, so this is Dylan Thomas, Penderyn Dylan Thomas, and
not to be confused with another Dylan.
Yes, absolutely, and very famous poet, of course, from Wales. And really, I think it was the 100th anniversary of his birth that we released this whiskey in conjunction with. And he's from an area called Larne, which is quite close to our hearts at the distillery, because this is where there's a lot of history and it's kind of a strange place, but a very interesting place, and so we wanted to celebrate that as well.
Very good. Yeah. And the whiskey itself, I think, is just bourbon cask, or was there sherry also there?
Sherry as well, yeah. This was a mix. We do a normal Penderyn sherry wood, which is at 46%, and that's 30% sherry, 70% bourbon, and this one's a little bit more sherry. It's 40% sherry casks with this one.
That was much different, a lot more different than the sherry wood for some reason. Really liked it. All right, moving on to a very interesting bottle that I have not tried for a good reason.
So this is That Try, Penderyn That Try. And this whiskey features Gareth Edwards, as, of course, very famous rugby player from Wales. And he scored a very famous rugby try. I think it was 1973, Barbars against the All Blacks. And it's known for being the best rugby try that was ever scored. So we wanted to celebrate that with this version of the whiskey as well.
And it's a peated whiskey.
Yes, exactly. So this is a peated finish. We use Lafroig quarter casks to finish the whiskey in, and that gives this whiskey a little bit of that smoky flavor, but not too much, not too intense.
Exactly. So I thought it was going to be like 30 ppm, but that's not at all.
More like 3.
Exactly.
More like 3.
My misconception. I'm sorry. I might try it one day after all. And now to the wackiest of all whiskey bottles ever.
Yes, it turns quite a few heads, this version, the Bryn Tervel, and Bryn is an opera singer, and the most famous character that he plays is Falstaff. That's what he's really known for, and it's a very theatrical, very, very dramatic part with a cape and a lot of red sort of velvet, and so we wanted to do something interesting with the bottles. This is actually a velvet feel bottle that we have. And I think this really sort of gets across this
flamboyant.
Exactly. And this whiskey is the one that's just from bourbon barrels, which makes it a very light, very, very delicate version of Penderyn, and definitely one of my favorites.
Mine too. It's amazing. I think it was the best European whiskey of the Continental European or whatever, also by the Jim Murray Whiskey Bible. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really good. And I think one of the reasons it was so popular is because it's a very light, delicate whiskey that is quite subtle. So it's good for beginners. It's very smooth, but at the same time, there's a lot there to hunt for experts as well, for people who really know their whiskey.
So one day we'll be doing a video of all 50 of these. It's going to take, I think, 3 hours. A long video, but who knows? And by that time, we might actually be retired. Who knows by the time all 50 of them are out? All right, very good. As you said, 2 are maybe planned for 2019, and then maybe in 2000. So if you go 2 a year, that's 25 years. I'm retired by then.
I think that was the original aim, was two a year. But it's taken a little bit longer, a bit more planning than we thought to do each version. Depends as well, if we do these special packagings, these crazy packagings, this takes longer as well. So
I'm sure this took a little while to print also, right?
Yes, exactly.
And so on. All right, good. WhiskyJason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American in Germany, today with
David from Penderyn.
And I'm here at the Hanse Spirit 2019 in Hamburg. Bye-bye.
Bye, thank you very much.
Thank you.